Welcome back. This is Gmax 1.2 for the beginning modeler, video number 41. The objective of which, or the topic of which, is to build the virtual cockpit. This is part 2 in the series. Our objective in this video is to show how to get started with building the virtual cockpit and using infrastructure available to us, and getting that in shape before we get into any details. In the last video, we talked about our introduction to building the virtual cockpit and why it's important to focus on certain things, the key differences in constructing the VC versus the exterior model parts. And if you haven't looked at that video, I encourage you to do so, because all of those points are key as we get started here. So if you haven't taken a look at that, please do so. It may save you some grief in building your virtual cockpit. Okay, this picture here of the VC we talked about in the last video, even though it looks a little foreboding with all of the little parts and whatever that makes it up, it's really not when you break it down into the basic infrastructure, which would be your walls and your floor, your glare shield, and your panel, and maybe including your seat. So when you only focus on those parts, it looks rather simple. So we can set all of this aside and just focus on those, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So the steps we'll go through is creating the basic infrastructure, isolating your work in a new Gmax scene separate from the rest of the project, creating the panel and the glare shield, and preparing the panel for gauge display. And of course, once you have all that infrastructure in place, you're set up then to start working on your detailed parts. Okay, with that said, let's close this and go back to Gmax here and take a look. What I've got here is the fuselage and the canopy, and what we want to do is basically copy the polys out of this fuselage to give us a starting point for the VC infrastructure. And what we're going to do then is move that into a separate scene. Now, things like the canopy that you will need for reference ultimately, you can merge that over to the new scene as required, or not. You can wait till you bring your VC back into your primary project here and then do what you need to do. So a lot of flexibility in the way you go about this. So let's just hide everything but the VC here, the fuselage here, hide unselected. And then what we want to do is save this to a new scene where we can work on this area, the cockpit area, without being encumbered by all the other parts in this scene. It just kind of keeps things simple and easy to move around. So let's go to File and Save Selected, and this will save the fuselage and any parent part. So we're going to save it in the same folder where the rest of our work has been saved, the Gmax file. So we're going to right click here in the blank space and create a new folder, and we'll just call it VC. So we'll open that folder and save selected in that folder, and we'll give that a name. This is the VC component, so this is what we're focused on in this folder, and we'll give it a date, 2017, the month of February, and the second day, and we'll give it a -01 since we may have multiple occurrences of this, and we'll call it Start VC. So now that we have that saved, let's go over and open that. We don't want to make any changes to that scene, but here we go. We're going to open this and we can get started. Now, You can just tell by looking down here there's something else hidden in the scene. Let's find out what it is. Just the exterior node, the top node for the exterior file. We'll just leave that in place. We're not going to use it, mess with it, or move it, because as the fuselage is linked to the exterior, it tells Gmax that when you go to merge your BCN back to the main project, that it's linked to exterior, and it will position it properly in the other scene. So that's what that's all about. Now that we have the fuselage here, what we want to do is get the basic infrastructure we need for the to start our work in the virtual cockpit. So what do we need here? Let's select out the polygons we need. Go to top view here and just come down here. And this is the open area in the cockpit seating area. So let's just select out what we need here. We're going to select those parts, or those polys, and we're going to go up to edit and select invert, and we're going to delete all of that stuff. We don't need it, not for what we're doing here. Let's go to the rear view with an F key and zoom with the E key, and we just want to get rid of everything else that we don't need here. So let's get rid of this stuff down here. We don't need it. Excuse me. And we also have the sides of the fuselage that we do not need, and something else down there. So let's just trash that, if you will. And get the select tool here. See if I can get on this. Guess I did. See if we got what we need here. We do there. Let's get rid of this stuff. Down here, hit the delete key. And that goes away. Hello, hit the right button. Now, we really don't need this tail end of this back here, so we'll go ahead and delete that. Okay, what we want to end up here with is just the seating area in the cockpit. And let's we need to select all these polys, kind of make it easy for us here. Select all those polys that we want to keep. We're also going to select, let's go to top view here. What I want to do is keep these polys. Yeah, those are exactly the ones I want to keep, because we're going to build off of that to create the glare shield. So now let's get rid of the rest of it by selecting invert. Just delete that. All that stuff is going to be back in the other scene. So this is actually a fuselage skin, but we're just going to use it to build up the glare shield. And these parts will no longer exist. The glare shield will sit above the fuselage skin. So this is what we've got. This is our basic infrastructure now. We've got our four walls, the floor, and the beginnings of our panel and glare shield. Now, I guess the first thing we can do is understand that we need to maintain all the lines that connected to the fuselage. So this top of the sidewalls, the edge around what was the metal skin here, but we're going to change that. And the back panel, we cannot touch these vertices, move those vertices, otherwise we won't have a good tight fit with the fuselage. So, one way to avoid doing that accidentally, I guess, is we can just go in and select these vertices and hide them, if you will. So we don't want to change those two. These, maybe not this one. Let's see. Yeah, we'll maintain that. Okay, we're gonna. We need that one too. We need this one. So what we're going to do is protect. Actually, we don't need to protect these because we are going to change them. We're going to recess this to become the footwell, if you will, so that it's back far enough so that we can get our pedals in here and so forth. Alright, but everything else looks good. We're going to hide, right click, and hide poly, which in this case is vertices. And actually I think we can freeze these and still do what we want to do. We'll do that too. Alright, so now we've got our infrastructure guidelines of the fuselage protected. We're not going to change that in any way. We don't want to change that in any way. Okay, so good. We got that part done. Now let's see. Having already exported my original model into the sim, I know that when you're sitting in the cockpit, you're sitting well above the glare shield. You can see the nose out here and the machine gun ports and so forth. And when you look down, you know, it's going to be kind of hard to see the gauges because your eye level is like way up here somewhere. So what I wanted to do was build this glare shield and pull it up and just kind of taper it down to meet where these hidden vertices are. So all this area here I want to build up to give our glare shield some thickness, and also want to pull the top of what's going to be the panel up to give us room to put some of our key gauges up here in the top area, so you don't have to pan down so far to see your key gauges, especially on takeoff and landing. So that's the next task for us. So we're going to go to the right view here and grab some vertices. Let's see, let's just start with these vertices. And we're just going to extend those up about, let's see, no, let's back up. Let's try a different approach. So you get to see how I go through my thought processes as I'm building here. This isn't all prearranged, believe me. We're going to grab some polys here, and what we're going to do is extrude, and we may extrude twice here. We're going to extrude just a little bit in order to just give us some thickness above the fuselage skin. Not much, because I don't want to hide all that work we did on the windshield frame, because that was good work. So we're going to get off of that, and then we're going to go back to how do we want to do this? What we need to do is raise this up, but we still want this angle down here to be rather light. So I think what I will do here is do it from a vertice standpoint. So let's just take these. We'll adjust those after we get a feel for what we've got up here. Now, I don't want this lower, well, I do want that lower group initially, because I want to extend this panel up a little bit. So let's go ahead and move this up and see what's going on here. So I'm building up the panel area as well as going with the glare shield. So now let's deselect these lower vertices, because now we're in the glare shield area. Now I'm going to undo this. Let me explain to you why here in a second. I would like, you see this isn't a nice rounded surface, and what I'd really like to do is, because in the BC this is so clunky looking, if you leave it that way, it's just, it needs to be more rounded. So let's do that first. We'll do that by getting here to the right side view and selecting these edges. And you know what we're going to do here before I even say it, don't you? We're going to chamfer until we like the roundness that we see. Actually, that's pretty good right there. Just kind of balance those chamfer distance, those edge differences with each other. See what that does for us here. It's a little tough to see. Let's turn this off. It's hard to see it when you turn it off. It's hard to see what you're looking at. That's what I want to see right there, and that's okay. I've still got that. So what I'm going to have to do is undo that. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. Maybe I need to select these edges. Oh, let's get in edge mode here. Try it this way. See what happens. Yeah, no. Still got those. Still got those points. Alright, what's up with that? Back up here. Why is it treating me this way? Are these actually welded? I bet they're not. No, that's why it's not working. Not sure why those aren't welded. So let's go back. That's driving me crazy here. We've got what did I do wrong there? Oh, duh. Pardon me talking to myself here. It's just the way it works. Alright, we've got way more vertices. We've got 10 instead of 5, so that's what was causing the issue. We need to change the selection to 0.004, which is about 1/8 of an inch. Actually, a little more than 1/8 of an inch for those of you that may be challenged on the metric side. So we're going to weld them. You may have seen that happen. To verify, we'll go up. So yep, now we got 5. Now we should be back in business. So back to the right side. Select these edges just to be sure they're all selected that we can't see. Now let's try this silly little move again. See if that helps with the chamfer. Yeah, sweet. Alright, now we've got pretty well rounded. And of course, you could take it again if you're brave enough to give up those polys. And then you get, but you know, it really pays off in the BC. People really like the fact that you can give them a nice round glare shield panel and not be all clunky with straight edges. So sweet, we got that. Alright, now we can go back and do what we wanted to do, which is extrude this. Well, I'm going to have to reselect here, right side, since we created all those new polys. Let's make sure that we didn't mess things up here in the front. No, we're good. Alright, now we're going to extrude a little, just to get off that original surface that we were on, but not so much that we're hiding the beautiful windshield frame that we built. Okay, we've got that. well, in the interest of time, I guess, we've got that. Let's pull that forward or backwards just a smidgen. The reason being, not that far. We want to come forward just a little bit, and we're going to do a second extrude. Extrude, not much, just enough that we can grab hold. We're going to give this kind of a curved surface, but that's just the start of it. Alright, so we're kind of back in business now, doing what I wanted to do. Now what I want to do is, this gets a little detailed, so you're going to have to bear with me here. Probably the best way to do this is select this line of vertices here. And that's going to be time consuming to do, but see if I can figure out if I can get a hold of it without selecting do no harm here, without getting the others. Probably not, but at least those will be easier to deselect, I think. Yeah. So let's get rid of these bottom selections here. At least I got some distance between the bunch of them. Get rid of all these bottom ones here so we can then commence to give this a little more height. Not that it needs it necessarily, but I did want to see. Back that up a little. No, we're not. We've got something there I don't like going on. Maybe I didn't deselect. I didn't. I overlooked. Any more? Yeah. Thought there was another one over there. Alright, let's try it now. See what we got. Yeah, that's much better. Alright, let's roll this back a bit. And that'll, when we smooth this, that'll give us kind of a rounded look to the front of the glare shield. Now with that done, I want to raise up, I want to raise up the all of this a bit. Reason being, I want this panel to come up a little further than it is to give us a better view of gauges. And that's going to be trying to see what's happening there in the back. I don't want to mess up what we got going for the existing the old infrastructure. Alright. Am I missing one here? Yeah. Kind of flipping back and forth here to see what's really going on. Be patient, folks. It just takes a little patience when you're trying to get this infrastructure the way you want it. And the benefit is you're just going to have a much nicer looking. And I mean, it's not all that critical. A lot of this is you're going to improve with textures anyhow. So anyhow, we've got that. We've got the panel up. We've got the glare shield with some depth now. and it's important that we have some visual interest in all of this. So let's pull all these bad boys up, kind of give us a graceful bring that down. Now you're getting the idea. Okay, let's call that good. We've got our glare shield. We've brought our panel up somewhat, at least the infrastructure from which we're going to build our panel. This isn't the panel. It's actually going to be something else. Okay. Not sure exactly what's going on here. Probably not something I should hold you up with, but it's just things that you run into. You got to figure out what is going on there. What is that a part of, and why is it doing what it's doing? It just looks wrong. I think it's part of the windshield frame that. But anyhow, it's something that you really should deal with. Now, what I want to do, though, with that part done, is to select. I'm not sure what's back there. That's why you have to resolve it. I want to take all this stuff here. And these can be simplified later, but we're just looking to make some progress here and show you the concept of getting this started. Okay, what I've got here now is the forward panel. We want to move that forward about 2 feet, 1.5 to 2 feet, to create the footwell where the rotor pedals are going to reside. So all we're going to have to do here is extrude that by clicking and pulling the mouse towards you. And we're going to kick that back just far enough to accommodate the rudder pedals and anything else that you may have down there in your aircraft. Now, though it's not necessarily in this aircraft, it may be in yours, particularly if it's a smaller aircraft. You may want to go up at this point and kind of pull in those sides a little, kind of shrink them towards the center, and that also helps with the visuals in the cockpit. And I don't think it's an issue, but we may want to squeeze it down just a smidgen vertically to kind of pull it away from any. I don't think we're running into any skin issues up there because we've got all this thickness already. But ultimately, you may want to pull this top surface down a little bit more so we're not totally obscuring the windshield frame. So, okay. And then you can come down here and level this back out if you wish. So there you have the basic glare shield, and underside as well. And you got your panel where you want it. All these areas are okay, even though we're going to do some changes to this to give you some visual interest. Now, now that you got that in place, we can go look at what we can do to create a panel from this infrastructure. Well, generally what I do is just come to the bottom of this, select some polys, and extrude them down. And that's a good way to get a fitting look. And so we'll just go ahead and do that right now. We're about 30 minutes into this, so all we're trying to do here is get a basic infrastructure in place. We need to turn on, ignore back facing. Just grab some polys here, and we're just going to extrude this down. I mean, we could use the line shape and draw this out, particularly if it's totally different, but since the panel in this is going to be similar to the shape of the glare shield, we're just going to let's see, let's see, copy this would be a good way to do it. We're just going to copy those polys. We'll call it BC panel. Doesn't look like one much, does it? Okay, and go select that object. And then we're just going to extrude this down. By pointing, clicking, and excuse me, extruding, pulling down, or pushing away. No, we don't want the bottom shape like that necessarily. I mean, it may be, but I sort of doubt it. So we're going to come down here and make planar. What that will do is flatten out the bottom like that. So generally you have a panel here that's, you know, somewhat the shape that we want. Now, all this stuff back here, you can do it in vertex mode, we don't need. So just delete, select all of those vertices. Now to get rid of all these unnecessary polys and vertices, hit the delete key. And now we're down to this nice smooth round panel. Now, I don't know how deep this panel goes or even how wide it was because I have no pictures for this aircraft, but this is something we can work with anyhow. So it's probably about that depth, but we'll pull it down a little bit more here, make it look right proportionally. We have a pretty wide panel. Like I say, it may need to be deeper than this. We just don't have a lot of things to reference at this point. So, but we do have a panel shape, and we can place that now wherever we want. We can move it. Well, first of all, let's back pivot only, center the object, line the world, reset scale just in case. Okay, now that we have that done, we can move this panel back or forward. Probably not forward. It's usually back. It's back. That's why you have a glare shield to keep the sun off of the gauges and eliminating the glare so that you can actually read what the gauges are telling you to read. So you set that back in there ever how far you think is appropriate, what your data or reference pictures tell you. And you can even move it down a bit because you're sitting up here above this glare shield and you want to be able to see all of those gauges. So you can move that down. May or may not want to see the top side of this edge. If you do, sometimes you can. You can always create some realistic depth here because the panel is not paper thin, so you would want to select all of them and just extrude forward. Just an appropriate amount to give it that upper edge that you know is there. So something like that. Alright, so usually on the bottoms like this, which you'll never see unless you get down in the floor, I usually delete off those bottoms and the sides because delete off everything but the top. Essentially, you need that. Why is this not? Let's rotate this. So it's nice and straight north and south here. Alright, and then we're going to actually select the vertices. All those vertices and polys we don't need and get rid of them. Boom, so now we're back to look, that's curved. We need to fix that. Or we should fix it. Let's make a planar. We want that to be nice and flat, or it's going to create problems for us. There we go. Nice and straight. Nice and straight, and we got a little bit of a depth perception here, so that looks good. Well, good. So now we've got a glare shield, a panel, while we're right here, we may as well select all of the polys and clear the smoothing and auto smooth. Matter of fact, we can do that for the rest of this too. Kind of get it all looking halfway decent to start. We'll screw it up again later as we start cutting and slicing and trying to build some visual interest into the sidewalls. Okay, so there we have a good starting point. We have our basic infrastructure in place: the walls, the floor, the glare shield, and the panel. I mean, what more could one ask? And it's all going to fit beautifully into the cockpit. So that's how you get started, folks. Okay, that's going to wrap up this video and set us up for the next one, which we'll talk about. And it may be premature, but I'm going to show you how now to just jump on this panel and set it up to display gauges on it. So I don't usually do it this early in the project, but I want to show you how to do that. And well, as an alternative, I'll change my mind. I won't do that so we can get on with the building, but I will point you to another video that's in my channel called How to Build a Virtual Cockpit and Display Gauges in the Sim in 15 minutes. I'll post that down in the comment in my comments here just below the video. And we'll wait till we get a little farther along and I'll actually do it in this cockpit. But it's the same process, so I'll point you to that video and you can just take a sneak peek at how you go about doing that if you wish. And also remind me that we need to delete out all these side polys because that's just a waste of polys. They won't be seen. So all those polys that don't get used we get rid of because they just slow down the sim ultimately when you leave a lot of them hanging around. Okay, so thanks for joining, and I hope this was instructional for how to get the basic cockpit infrastructure started and get yourself in a position to get down to the fun of building the individual parts. And if you have good reference data, that can go real quick. If you don't, it takes time. So you could probably build all these parts in 2 or 3 days if you had all the reference data that you needed, but usually you don't, so it takes a little more time. Alrighty, so thanks for joining, and see you back at the next video where we will start building some visual interest in the walls and getting things ready and beginning to add parts to the cockpit. So hope this has been instructional, and I hope you guys have a good day.